Ladies and gentlemen, what's up? This is BC. Welcome back to another episode of Supreme Being the podcast, coming at you live from Miami, Florida. Appreciate all the support and all the love we've been getting with the podcast. I know this is one of the final frontiers. We're not severely getting censored, but we're rolling with the punches, right? Shout out to Team BC Real Estate, my nationwide real estate team. We are now open in Virginia. Shout out to our newest member out there. I just got the keys to my office last Friday here in Miami. So those of you who are interested in joining here in Miami, teambcsold@gmail.com. Shoot me an email and say you're interested in joining Team BC, and we'll take it from there. I'll announce it officially and send you an email when we're ready to go. Huge shout out to Modern Success, my coaching program, my tribe, my warriors. You guys are interested in joining, which I recommend all of you do if you're an adult and you want to take your life to the next level. Go to bryancasella.com. You'll find it there on my main page, along with all the other products and services that I offer. Okay, let's begin. I get a lot of questions around being on a journey, right? You evolving as a person and how that coincides and runs parallel to goals and dreams and aspirations that you set as a person. Okay. You know, in one breath, we have the big why, what your why is, right? Which has been preached for a long time. Find your why and you're good to go. Well, what happens when this individual now who maybe has found their reason to work and get up every day and pursue this goal, or their why, whatever you want to call it, let's not get caught up in semantics. What happens when that person begins to evolve as an individual and things about them change and develop and alter, where now that original reason or why starts to dim a little bit, right? And now they feel, oh my God, I'm a little bit lost. What do I do, right? How do these two worlds collide or coincide or are in harmony or conflict? Or how does this yin yang of these two go together? Now, this is, I don't think, really talked about, and it's usually swept under the rug, or this is, I think, reserved for people who maybe mentally are a little bit more adept or more interested in hearing about these things, because, you know, when you get the traditional advice, it's very cut and dry and it just says get into action, which serves its purpose. Absolutely. You do want to get into action 100%, right? So let's unpack this a little bit and explore this on this lecture, because I think this is extremely important, because there's no doubt at all that if you, especially if you follow me, I don't care how many people you follow, but if you tune in and you listen to me at least once or twice a week, or especially those of you on Modern Success, where we lecture every week, you're studying lectures and you're really diving deep and tuning into what I have to say, there is no doubt, even if you just sit back and listen to me, you will change and develop. Like, absolutely. It's all going to be at varying degrees depending on that person or individual, but you will change. And when you change, those reasons and whys naturally will shift. It's a domino effect, and people forget that. Okay. So there's a couple of things we need to look at. We need to look at the awareness of the individual as they develop. We need them to acknowledge what's developing in them. They need to look at their original plans from the beginning and already know what may change. And then when things are changed or alterations are made to that plan or that reason, that why, we need to make sure that they're coming from the right place. Because sometimes people make changes when they shouldn't make changes. Okay. Case in point. Somebody who's a have-not, meaning they haven't put themselves in the position of having something or having experienced it, or are in the position to purchase something, or in the position of I have a choice, meaning I can take this action or not. If they're in that position, they can change it. If you're not there, right? So how can I make this relatable to you? How many people do you guys know who are broke, who can't figure out anything about money, but will sit there and preach to the world that it's not about money and this and that? It's like, dude, you've been broke your whole life. You're not in a position to where you even have the capability or skill to make money if you wanted to, where it's a choice that you're not making money. No, you're just broke and miserable, and you're making up an excuse to save face, basically, right? Now, that's a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow, and they won't admit that, and they'll argue with me, but I know the truth. I know the truth. Now, me, although I make a very good amount of money, you don't see me flaunting all the time and showing off, but I'm coming from the position of choice. You've seen me have the Lambos and the big house and all that shit. And can I still have it and more? Sure. I'm just choosing not to right now. I'm coming from a position of choice. So when I sit here and tell you, it's not all about money. Yes, that's important, but it's not all about money. You can actually listen to what I have to say and believe it because I'm coming from a position of choice. I'm not this little have not that, sits on the sidewalk who can't rub two pennies together trying to lecture you on money as one example, right? So that's what I mean when someone is in a position of choice, who's then making that claim and designation, because that's one of these first little asterisks that we need to put on this. If I'm going to look at my goals and alter it, right? Let me give you another example. One of the big ones for me was buying a Lamborghini years ago. If you guys have been following me, you know that I wanted a Lambo. I'd been talking about it, right? One of the many goals on my list was getting certain types of cars and achieving those goals. And I achieved them all, right? I got my Audi first, and I got my Nissan GTR, and then I got the Lamborghini Huracan, right? So in succession, I did that. Now, had I gotten to the GTR or the Lamborghini and sat there and said, okay, I'm ready to buy it now. I'm in a position to buy it. But you know what? I don't even want to buy it anymore. I want to take that money and buy stocks or invest in real estate or, donate it to my parents or something, right? Had I gotten to that finish line, crossed it and said, now I want to make this change. Okay. Now I'm making a proper decision from the right place. I'm not being weak. I'm not making excuses, and I'm not giving up. You get what I'm saying here, ladies and gentlemen? This is key. It's not I was at the first step and I realized, oh my God, this is going to be a lot of work. And then I threw the goal out the window and then made up some patty cake fucking excuse about it, right? Because we have to man up to this shit and we have to accept responsibility. Because then deep down inside, some of us will hear that person who gave up and be like, get out of here, dude. Get out of here. But if you see the person at the finish line, then be like, no, something's changing. Or they're really close, right? You're like, oh, okay, right? This person has changed. They've developed. It's clear, right? They're in a different place mentally, right? Spiritually, whatever you want to call it. They made a change. Okay. You see? So now not only internally, but also externally, this makes sense now, which is a key here when you're running these parallels of your development and the goals, because this is going to happen all the time. And this is one of those many assessments that you need to make. When you look at your goals, I recommend you look at them obviously daily, but from this assessment of, do I still really want this or to achieve this or to buy this or to become this? When you look at your goals and you look at what you've put down and what you want to achieve, that's a question you have to ask at least every week. And when it starts to get weak or you start to be like, that's not that important anymore, then you can run some of these tests to see, okay, am I making this choice from I think I can't have it, or is this a legitimate choice of I'm either achieving it, I've achieved it, or I'm about to achieve it, but I don't want that anymore, right? And only you can answer that. I can't answer that for you. Your mommy and daddy can't. Your friend can't. Your mentor can't. You have to do it. That's a conversation and a deliberation that you have you with you. Remember what I talked about on the last podcast about improving your relationship with yourself. These are the types of discussions that you have to improve that relationship, but also to better yourself and take yourself down the right path. Why do you think, ladies and gentlemen, so many people are fucking miserable? They don't do this, number one, but number two, they're going after shit they don't want. They're trying to become somebody they really don't want to be. And everything about the path that they're on is ass fucking backwards because they don't put their mind to it. They don't pay attention to it. This has all to do with awareness and paying attention. Okay. That's number one, right? This may be more than one podcast, but I kind of want to make sure I get through certain segments. Number two, as you're going through your goals, right? If some of these goals that you're going after initially, you didn't realize that now as you develop are starting to take you down a path that you don't want to go down, you need to make a decision, right? Maybe something that innocently you wanted to achieve before you had no idea that once you started, maybe causes you to harm yourself or spend time with people or do something that maybe you don't entirely agree with. Maybe a certain business practice that you're like, I don't like doing that, right? Like some people, as an example, don't like the wholesale aspect of real estate because they think you're kind of taking advantage of people, right? And I can kind of understand that, right? I don't think you are technically, especially if you disclose it, but I understand some people think it is. Cool, fair enough. I wouldn't recommend that person who believes that wholeheartedly go after the goal or achievement of being a great wholesaler. You're going to be conflicting on the inside. So now you're engaged in an activity that you don't agree with, for money or fame or attention or whatever it is. You're self-inflicting damage to yourself and your psyche by doing that. Because now you're selling out, you're going against your own word. You're doing something you know you shouldn't be doing and something you truly don't believe in for XYZ reason, which is incorrect. And whenever you go against yourself like that, 10 times out of 10, 100 times out of 100, you will suffer for it. And you will suffer gravely for it on the inside. And eventually it's going to start showing on the outside, and you'll be this miserable prick. You'll be emotional, and certain manifestations will come up to indicate to the world that, hey, this dude or this person is fucked up. Something's wrong with them. Something's off. Where do you see this, ladies and gentlemen? Ding, ding, ding. Hollywood. How many people have you found out that you had a hunch that are on drugs, wanting to commit suicide, having mental issues, have to check into rehab? Why do you think it happens? Because they can't handle the pressure and mentally they break for reasons like this. Maybe they took a movie role that they didn't want to take. Maybe they're engaged in an activity that they didn't want to engage in. I mean, you guys have heard the stories about Hollywood and all the fucked up shit that happens behind the scenes. We know that stuff is true. So some of them sold out and did evil or corrupt acts that go against not only everybody's moral code, but their own, if they're a decent human being. And now they're suffering the consequences for it. They're suffering. They now have to resort to drugs or something else in order to cope with that. Why? Because they went against not only the human code, but their own code, which is the second point that I'm talking about here. Again, this runs parallel. What I want to achieve, who I want to become, right? All those reasons, the big why, and then you and your development as a person. And again, this is so of utmost importance, like 1,000%. And we're just now getting into it, right? Here's another one I want to bring up. Sometimes a particular activity or thing that you do, you may look at that and be very short-sighted and not see the opportunity behind it. Let me give you an example in my own life. Real estate, you guys have heard the career path of real estate. I knew from the beginning, and you've heard me say this, it's not my passion. I'm not passionate about this career. I knew in the end what I would be able to create and who I would become in the process by the activities I would have to engage in this career would make this worth it. And it would allow me to live the life that I'm living now and beyond. I'm reaping the rewards from all this work that I continue to do and from that understanding that I had in the beginning. However, if I follow traditional advice, work what you're passionate at, and I just followed it at that surface level and at face value, I wouldn't be in this position because I would have said, well, I'm not passionate about real estate. I'm not going to do that. All right. So we have to upgrade, click to the next level, how you view life. So what is the error in that traditional advice right there? Short-sightedness, short-sightedness. We have to look past that. Is there opportunity in there hidden perhaps that you don't see? And I saw all this, man, I'm going to improve my communication, my confidence. I'm going to be more social. I'm going to now create a brand. I'm going to be able to branch out eventually later beyond real estate. This is going to be cool. What did I have to do? I just had to apply my mind. I wasn't anywhere near as developmentally now as I was, 9, 10 years ago when I started this stuff. But even back then, just by using my mind and thinking ahead, I was like, dude, this is the ticket right here. This is amazing. I have to double down on this and go 100%. And that's what I did. And all of you can do the same. But what do? Instead of looking at what I just said, you look at what you're missing or what might go wrong. Oh, I'm too young. Well, what if I fail? I knew that shit was there, dude. But curb that shit for a second and say, okay, yeah, that's a possibility. I can fail and blah, blah, blah. But what's the upside to this? And really grill your mind and focus on that for this third point on this podcast. And you will be pleasantly fucking surprised what you come up with. That's how I came up with it. All these things. I'm going to be a great communicator. I'm going to be well known. I'm going to have a good reputation. I'll be able to grow my social media. Right. And back then, social media wasn't anywhere what it is now. People were telling me, stop making videos. You're wasting your time. Like, what are you doing? Oh, that's cute. You're making videos. What do you want to be, a fucking movie star? Those are the type of dumb fucking comments I was getting back then. But I looked ahead and knew, maybe not for sure where we're at now, but I knew what we're dealing with now. This was a possibility. I knew it back then. I knew, this is a possibility. So it's worth it for me to go all in with this thing. Because the potential of that actually coming to fruition, all these things that I've just said, social media blowing up and video, is worth it for me to go fucking all in on this and dive head first. Fuck yeah, let's go. Because the negative shit, that's going to happen anywhere. But the positive upside and the potential, that's what I'm fucking talking about. That's what I'm here for. Let's go. That to me is worth it. That's the zest of life right there, especially in this fucking subject. Right? Now, number 4, as you develop and you're checking these goals, right? Remember, we always say goals are firm and you want to do them. However, they have to be malleable, meaning you have to interchange things and change things, and you may alter it slightly, right? So that's number 4, is being active in that process and being proactive in it and spotting when you have these changes. And the moment that you see and notice your awareness, remember what I said, the moment you become aware of some of these shifts within you, right? You need to immediately get pen to paper and make these adjustments, because the longer that window goes, the more your path may deviate. And you know that if you're on a boat or a plane and you switch the deviation of where you're going, even slightly 1 degree over time, that gap becomes greater and greater and greater. And you end up in a completely wrong place if you wait too long. That's not to say that you can't fix it, but we want to catch it right away. That requires the awareness and being in tune with yourself to say, hey, something about me's changed. There was a point in my life, let me give you an example, where getting approval of other people didn't fucking matter anymore. And I remember that moment, and things changed. There was a moment I remember when money didn't mean anywhere near what it meant to me before. And I understood what money was really about. And that light bulb went off. I remember that moment. I remember that moment when I figured out, right? And it all finally clicked about relationships and men relating to women and all that stuff. And not just the sexual and romantic part of it, but also, you know, friendships and communication and social dynamics of social interactions and interpersonal relationships. Boom, that changed everything for me. I remember when I hit a certain point of mastery, not the end, but a certain level of mastery in communication, when I realized, wow, this is the key right here to unlock everything I've ever wanted. I remember that moment. I mean, I'm just giving you a ton right now, but I remember those moments vividly. Then immediately, who I want to be, where I want to go, what I want to become, what the future looks like, pen to paper, things started changing. And I was extremely active in that process. Even embracing, if we're going to create another point now, even embracing the changes in yourself. I've evolved tremendously. I mean, even if you guys just look at it from an image standpoint, right? Growing my hair, tattoos, wearing crazy ass suits, sometimes not wearing suits, sometimes wearing them, right? Just how I express myself, what I talk about, the subject matter, my knowledge. I mean, everything. The essence of what I did in the beginning is still there, of course, just multiplied by 10 with all this other stuff. But how many people would be afraid to change that? So as these reasons and things on the flip side started changing internally, I started shining differently and showing the world different things and aspects about me. I started looking at the rules that people were confined to and followed and said, man, those rules, some of them, sure, but a lot of them are just bullshit. Remember, like even stuff that I told you guys, when you hear people say, someone told me, well, people say that. And I would catch them like, what the fuck does that mean? What book is that coming from? I never heard anybody say that before I started saying that, at least publicly. And I say it publicly to people. It's like, well, where are you getting that advice? So when I started giving people advice about that, like, it's like a light bulb went off, right? Now, I know a lot of people would never say that stuff because it's not politically correct or all that other stuff. But again, I hit thresholds where that stuff stopped mattering. Now your actions change. Now you change. Now your path, again, changes slightly. Now you start putting all the pieces together and building what you need. But this harmonious duality, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, about these two paths concurrently being side by side, being what you're doing, the reasons and the big why, and then your development as an individual, those have to be intertwined. Whereas before this podcast, maybe many of you didn't look at those as even being correlated in any reason at all. Because I know a lot of people would look at whatever they wrote down, and even if they change, they're like, well, I wrote that down, I have to do it no matter what. And I get it, but that's a shitty position to be in, because I've been there until I leveled up mentally and said, sure, that's to keep me going and keep me committed. But if I'm able to achieve it, or I'm in a position where I have achieved it, but I want to go a different direction, I can. And I don't need anybody's fucking permission. I just need the awareness within me to recognize that I don't want that shit anymore, or I want to do something different, or I want to become something different. Right. But again, that requires you to have a better relationship with yourself, to know that you're making these choices and things from a position of choice. Like you're not just freaking out and quitting, right? Like we have a clear distinction there. But then moving forward and doing it, you don't care what anyone has to say about it, which is cool. That's the external portion of it. Now you're moving and operating at a level that very few people get to, and is the envy of the majority of the population. Because we all know everybody talks a big game, but in this subject matter, the majority of the people on this planet, on planet Earth, are suffering. They're suffering. So bring a little bit more awareness into this, re-listen to this, listen to these 4 or 5 points. I will more than likely do a continuation on this and give some more examples and maybe dive a little bit deeper into it. But this is, I believe, one of those kind of predicaments a lot of people get into, but they don't think about it from this perspective, right? Of comparing the development of self concurrently with your reasons and the big why and all that. And looking at that and putting both of those things on the table and saying, okay, let's play with this, right? So they'll feel lost because they don't understand this or have this mental technology. All right. So hopefully it helps you. All right. I appreciate all the support, guys. This will be the end for the episode. Shout out to Team BC nationwide, right? If you guys are interested in joining, join teambc.com. In case you also have any referrals or business for us, let us know. Also, huge shout out to Modern Success, my tribe. I would encourage everybody who really likes my content to join Modern Success, to really take themselves and their lives and their business and everything else to the next level. You can find everything, including my products and everything else, at bryancasella.com. And the links are on my YouTube and all my social media as well, and the description of this podcast. All right. That's it for this one, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.